Hey YouTube, welcome back to my object-oriented TypeScript series. In this video, we're going to go over constructor functions, parameter properties, static variables, and read-only variables. Up until now, we've had classes where we had to do all of the instantiation. So if a character has hunger, and it also has health, and let's do hero has a hero ID, that's a number. And for encapsulation reasons, we want to set these properties as private. Let's do these two, or let's make this private. And then we'll do set hunger, which takes in hunger, number, and this does this, dot hunger equals hunger. And we're going to explicitly annotate this as a void function, and we'll do the same thing for health. Set health. And we'll do the same thing for hero ID, set hero ID. Now, what's annoying about this is when I want to create a new hero. Let's say I want my hero to be named Jeff. I have to, for the person creating the class code, they have to rely on the caller of the code, the client that's using the code, to then, after instantiating the hero object, to set the hero ID as, let's say 1, 2, 3. They have to rely on the person to explicitly do this. And then here, set health and set hunger. Oh, whoops, I'm not inheriting from the character. So here, I would have to set the health, set the hunger to 100, and likewise for the health, right? This is error prone because you don't want to rely on people to do this themselves. So the solution for this is something called a constructor. So we can move all this code into the instantiation of the object automatically. Ignoring the hero class for now, let's start off with the character class, and let's say we want to create characters, right? Jeff equals a new character. Instead of, setting the health to 100 and setting the hunger to 100, we're going to move these two calls, this logic, into the invocation of the object initializer. So when we call new character, this is invoking is a function called the constructor function, right? So this is a key word, constructor. It's a special function that you can put in classes, and this function can take in parameters. So we're going to take in our hunger, which is a number, and we're going to take in the health, which is a number as well. And then we're going to simply set this dot hunger equals to hunger, and this dot health equals to health. And then you can see here that we get a type error saying that we expected 2 arguments in the constructor. So when you initialize the class into an object like this, you're actually invoking the constructor function. So we get regular type errors like this. We expected 2 arguments but got 0. An argument for hunger was not provided, and then after we'll get the type error for the health. So let's pass in 100 and 100. And we correctly create a character, and then we have access. We can console.log, so then we can't console.log because they're private, but we can add getters. So get hunger to void, and this will console.log this dot hunger, or let's just return this dot hunger. And the same thing for get health. So this is actually going to return numbers. Get health number, return this dot health, and then we can log the two. So let's log Jeff dot get hunger, and the same thing for health. So let's compile that, and we get 100 and 100. So now, if we wanted to extend from the character class, and we want to extend from the character class, and we have a hero ID, and we will add a get hero ID, which returns a number. When we create a constructor function, we want a hero ID, which is a number, and we want to set this dot hero ID equals hero ID. So then when we create the hero, we pass in the ID 123. But we get a type error here saying that constructors for derived classes, so for this base class or subclass hero, it must contain a supercall. So you can think of class hierarchies whenever you're extending and inheriting from superclasses. You can think of it as objects being wrapped around objects. So we have to construct the character class too, because we need the constructor class needs not the constructor class. The character class needs to construct its hunger and health, because it's the only class that knows how to. You know, what if they did special things like hunger times 2 or something, right? The hero class knows nothing about how to create characters. The hero class only knows how to create heroes. So what we have to do is call super, right? And what this does, this keyword, it calls the superclass's constructor. So the hero's class's superclass is character. So it's similar to new character, but in a class we just use the super keyword. And then here now we're saying the super keyword constructor character. You can see here constructor character expected 2 arguments but got 0. So now we have to pass in, of course, the hunger and health. But then where are we going to get the hunger and health? Well, we have to now get it from the hero class, right? Because that's the main constructor. So we pass in hunger and health as parameters. And then now when we create our hero object, our subclass, we have to pass in hunger and health. And that's how constructors work on multiple hierarchies when you're extending from superclasses and base classes. One thing that TypeScript offers is a feature called parameter properties. So we can convert these parameters to properties implicitly. Let me show you with just a hero class. Hero is going to have hunger and health. But instead of explicitly saying, okay, this class hero is going to have hunger and it's going to have health, and of course I'm messing this up. Instead of doing this, what we can do is in the constructor, we can put parameters like this. We can say public hunger is a number and public health is a number. And with this is we are implicitly saying that the hero class has a public hunger instance variable and a public health instance variable. So then we can create new heroes. And we need to pass in, of course, hunger as a number, 100, and then this gets highlighted, the health as a number. And now we can access Jeff.health and hunger, even though we didn't, give it the explicit things. And there's some mixed opinions on parameter properties. Some people say that, it's confusing because it's in line, and from people coming from other languages, it's pretty canonical to have your instance variables declared here. And another thing that you have to watch out for is it's quite confusing when you're combining parameter properties with explicit properties. So if you have something like, private, or it could be public too, hunger ID, which is a number, right? It's now getting a bit out of hand. So if you want to save keystrokes and use parameter properties, then I would advise to only using parameter properties. But if you start mixing things, then just pull everything out and explicitly set them in the constructor. So pull these out. Then you have health as a number. That we can remove public because they're default. Properties are public by default, and then do your usual constructor like things. This dot hunger equals hunger, and this dot health equals health. So the next thing we're going to go through is something called static properties. And static properties live on the class instead of the object instance. So let's go back to character. Let us undo this, undo it. Let's go back to the example where we had a character and hero. And let's say we wanted to create a character count. So the way we can create a character count is through a static variable. And what we do here is we have a static character count. And a character count is going to be a number. And let's actually initialize that to 0. So when we declare a static variable on a class called character, this lives on the class level, not on the object level, not on the instance level. So here I have access to character.characterCount, but Jeff does not have access to character count because it lives on the class level. So all classes of character have access to this static character count. And what we can do now is we can keep this character count. We can increment this character count each time a character gets created. So every time this gets created, we can say character dot character count plus equals 1, right? And then we can also console.log. We can use template strings. I'm the character dot character count character created. So then if we create a bunch of heroes, of course I'm going to get errors with the names. And you'll see that we get I'm the first character created, I'm the second character created, so on, because in the constructor function we are logging out the static variable. And this is just a variable that's attached to the character namespace, so to speak. And yeah, it doesn't change when you create new objects. It stays the same. It's only changing right now because we are mutating it. But yeah, it's just a variable that lives on the class level, and yeah. So yeah, that's static variables. They live on the class level. They're attached to the class namespace. And you can think of static variables as shared state amongst objects. So here in the hero class, when I create an instance of it, I have access to the static member variables, static properties throughout the object. And I can access this anywhere actually. It doesn't have to be within the class or the object. It can be outside as well. So it's just like a static, like a static thing. And then the last thing I just wanted to fit in here is really quick. It's just another modifier for properties. And what that is the read-only modifier. So you can make this a read-only thing right here. And then when you mark something as read-only, that means that you cannot mutate it after it has been instantiated. So here we set the hero ID in the constructor, and that's okay because we are constructing the hero object and we have to initialize it. But after, it's read-only. You cannot mutate it anymore. And we get the type error, cannot assign to hero ID because it is a read-only property. So yeah, that wraps up my object-oriented TypeScript series. I hope you guys learned a lot or learned a few things. If you learned something, then I'm happy. I know I learned a lot making these videos. Had a lot of fun making this series. And I can't wait to create more content like this. I'll see you guys later.